Okay, the recording started. Hi, everybody. My name is Ona Ramzi. I'm one of the careers projects officer and also the careers advisor in the careers team at UWS. And we have today Balfour Beatty engineers, civil engineers here as our guest speakers. And we're delighted to have you all. And thank you very much. And I welcome Alan, Robert, and Ross. And this is your platform now. Thank you.
No problem. We'll get started then. So today's presentation, so the three of us will each give a wee brief introduction of ourselves and what we do. We'll cover a short overview of Balfour Beatty and what we do. I'll then go on to talk about my journey and how I got to where I am today. We'll then talk about a typical day in the life of a site engineer. I'll provide some examples of some experiences on projects I've been on since I've started up until now. We'll then touch on the maintenance frameworks, which Alan's in charge of, and Robert's in charge of HRE frameworks, which he'll also talk about. And then at the end, if anybody's got any questions, we can certainly answer them for you. So, like I said, my name's Ross, I'm 27 from Paisley. Like yourselves, I studied at the University of the West of Scotland doing a BN's Civil Engineering degree. My current role within Balfour Beatty is a site engineer, and I've been with the company 5.5, nearly 6 years now. If you guys want to just give an introduction.
Hi, I just introduce myself. I'm Alan Gilmour. I'm a project manager with Balfour Beatty, regional civils business, as Ross said. So we cover the whole of Scotland from a civil engineering point of view. I've been with Balfour Beatty for 23 years now, just about, coming up in November. And also went to, as I said earlier, started off my engineering journey with Paisley College of Technology back in 1989. That's when all the universities and colleges were changing, merging, etc. So I ended up graduating from the Paisley University. Obviously, it's since changed its name to UWS. So I became chartered in 2017. And as I say, I've been with Balfour for 23 years. Most of my career at Balfour. Had a bit of time where a smaller contractor in Ayrshire called Bar Construction. A lot of good experience with them doing water treatment works and football stadiums, sort of building in the early mid-90s. And then, as I say, joined Balfour, so worked my way up from a section engineer with Balfour through to currently project manager on looking after mainly highway maintenance framework contracts, which covers from Cumbria up to Aberdeen. And then, as I say, helping out with Robert's contract, which Robert's running on his own really, but that's under my remit as well. So happy to support anything that's going on at Paisley, as I said. So over to Robert.
Robert Robertson. I've actually been with the company for 18 years. I've been graduated UWS. I was fortunate to do the BEng Civil Engineering with Project Management course there, with the two sandwich placements between second and fourth year. I was fortunate enough to get a placement between third and fourth year with a part of Balfour Beatty called Rainsway Construction, which looked after the smaller scale civils packages for Balfour Beatty, and managed to work my way up from graduate engineer to, I suppose, framework manager at the moment, looking after our historical railways estate maintenance framework, which is a framework that looks after the derelict and old rail lines throughout Scotland and the North of England, which I believe Bailey's on this call just now. Bailey will know one of the structures. I'll touch on it a bit more later on in the presentation.
Okay, so just a short, brief introduction to Balfour Beatty. So we're a major international infrastructure company. We are in the UK, we're also in the US, and we have a partnership, kind of the Southeast Asia, Hong Kong area called Gammon. I don't know if anybody's heard of that, but we're constantly thriving and becoming bigger and bigger. And I've just got a small video next to show you, just to show some of the scales of projects that we carry out. So that was just a short snippet of some of the stuff we do. So we work in a wide range of sectors, as you can see there: transport, power and energy, and social infrastructure. So within transport, we have, as Alan touched on, some maintenance roads projects, as well as building new roads, such as the A9. Rail projects, you probably see the top picture there and recognise that. So that's the Forth Rail Bridge. So we have a maintenance contract on that one. And the picture below that, so that is Glasgow Queen Street Station. So if any of you have been in and around Glasgow in the last year or two, you've probably seen that we were the main contractor refurbing the station there. Airports wise, we've also had contracts in airports. During my time, I've worked on the likes of Edinburgh Airport projects. I've worked on a project in Aberdeen Airport, and there's some minor contracts at Glasgow Airport. So we're always in and around the airports. Power and energy, so we deal with some nuclear things. You see Hinkley Point on the news probably. Power T&D, we've got a section of the business that deal with things like that. Renewable energy, when I first started, we had lots of contracts with Iberdrola, which is Scottish Power, upgrading substations, and I'll talk a wee bit more about that further on. We also do a lot of social infrastructure with commercial, education, healthcare, etc. The top building there is the Gatti building. So I think it's a marine biology building we built for St Andrews University right on the beach. It's quite a prominent, unusual, but quite a special building. And then the one below that is a new building just been completed at Strathclyde University. So again, it's just a small timeline of some of the major things that we've done. We've also went beyond 2016, but we started off in 1909 with George Balfour and Andrew Beatty. We opened up business, and as you can see the timeline from 22, 31, 39, we then awarded a contract of £5 million to build a tunnel, which back in those days was a major amount of money. Another prominent one that we might know or we might have heard of was the Channel Tunnel in 1986, and even to this day it's a major part which connects the UK to mainland Europe and not just France. You can see in 2005 we began a decade of works on the M25, which is a major motorway network down in England. 2016, as you see, we helped transform the Olympic Stadium, which was open in 2012 for the Olympics, which is now the home to West Ham. And just as I touched on previously, other jobs are such as probably local ones that you're aware of would be the likes of Queen Street or Strathclyde Uni. Hopefully this works quite the thing. So again, just another short video there, just to highlight some of the things that we do. I know for myself, it's better to actually see things happen and not just people speaking about it or seeing things in textbooks. So it's always good to have a wee video there to help explain things. So, like we kind of briefly talked about earlier before we started the call, somebody asked about my journey. So I'm just going to quickly talk about how I got to where I currently am just now. So slightly different to some of you. I started, it was Stowe College at the time. I did a HND for 2 years when I left school. I got an A in my graded unit. That then allowed me to go into UWS at third year. And that then allowed me to get my BEng honours degree in civil engineering. During my time at uni on third year and fourth year, like what the guys talked about during their introductions, I also had some work experience placements. My first one was with Robertson Construction in third year, which I was then invited back again for a further 2 weeks. The project was a concrete storey building in Brigton, just outside Glasgow. Again, it was more of a management style side, and that's what the boys were talking about earlier, that when you go in these placements, you can decide if this is for you or it's not for you. The first one wasn't as hands-on as what my second placement would be. So my second placement was then with Rainsway Construction, which Robert talked about earlier, which was my fourth year placement. That was more to on-site and hands-on, like the picture shows there, about lines and levels and things like that, which then through my performance and that then allowed me to get my graduate role within Balfour Beatty. And like I highlighted there earlier, I've been with the company 5.5, nearly 6 years now, and I had experience in various different projects across Scotland. So a typical day of a graduate site engineer, so it depends sometimes on the project you're on, but most duties are consistent of what we do. The main thing will be setting out. I don't know if anybody's had placements before or not, but that is the major part of your role, setting out line and levelling. So there is usually, you use a total station for things like that. When you plot coordinates into the system, into the machine, and that gives you accurate points, for example, where a foundation could be or rebar could be on steel, etc. And then your levels is usually used with a dumpy level, and that could be to measure the height of concrete for a base, etc. So you're marking the lines on a shutter. Also, a big part of the job is material takeoffs. For example, you're looking at the drawing or you're in discussion with the foreman, you've got a concrete pour for bases the next day. So measurements are there, and it's quite simple to get quantities for materials, and then underneath you can order materials yourself. A big one now is quality control, and we use a software system called BIM 360. So each person has an iPad, whether it be an engineer, an agent, or a foreman, or a supervisor, and this helps you when you're on site. This helps you to document everything through checklists, pictures, diaries, and it's all about creating a database, which can then, at the end of the project, you can help gather together for your health and safety file, which you give to your client. The bottom one, which regardless of what position you're in, health and safety is every day, it's in everyday life, and it's the most important part. So every day starts with a daily briefing, usually from the supervisor or the foreman, and that then you then know what's happening on that day. You can then plan your day around that. Toolbox talks are also very important. That's usually happens on a Friday morning on site. That's where safety alerts from, it could be other companies or anywhere around the UK, etc. It's just to brief everybody, make sure everybody's staying safe. And then RAMs, so your risk assessment and method statements, it's important to know what they are. At that level, you probably won't write them, but it's just important to know what should be done in a safe manner. So I'll just quickly talk about some projects that I have been on through my time at Balfour Beatty and try and kind of relate to how a daily life would be. So my first project I was on, so it was Lamhill Substation in Glasgow. The client was Iberdrola. So this was where my 4th year placement began, and then I was able to continue that job as a graduate engineer. So the picture on the left-hand side is when we came to site, and then the picture on the right-hand side is when we finished site. So basically, all the machinery there was defunct and it had to be upgraded to a new standard. The steel columns, etc., you see, that was all subbed out, but predominantly our job was to do all the civils package, and this included bases, troughs, etc. So my daily routine would probably be, so it'd be a daily briefing, or you would have your weekly meeting with your project manager and your foreman. You would then know what's expected of yourself for the week, or what was expected in the programme for the week. And genuinely, I would then be going out, setting blinding levels for the boys to dig to, then concrete. And then once that was done, I would then go back with my total station and then set out the bases with the Hilti nails for the joiners to come in, prep the shutters, prep the steelwork before a concrete pour would happen. And this would happen quite routinely. And I've just got a wee scenic picture there. One evening on site, all alone, as you sometimes are. The guys are in the distance there, so I just thought that was quite a nice wee picture. Another job I've been on is Almond Blanc Flood Prevention Scheme in Perth. So the top left-hand picture there is the site compound. The top right-hand picture there, if you can kind of see the hatched line there, it's just to show you the River Almond. So Almond Bank's at the top left-hand side of that map, and Perth's kind of the central part to the bottom right. So basically in the 90s, there was a major flood of the River Almond, which flooded the whole village. And we were tasked to go in by Perth and Kinross Council to effectively make it not happen again. This was a very challenging, but this is where I learned a lot of knowledge on this job. The bottom left just shows you some of the restraints of the job. That was in somebody's garden. The blue machine there is a piling rig. So what we had to do, as we were predominantly working on the river, we had to create working platforms, and to allow us to do this, we had to pile into the water for the water to stream away in a different direction. We would then create a working platform with stone, which would then allow the machines to go out, and we could dig for the walls to be constructed. The bottom right picture I've got there so far is just showing you how hard it was to concrete some of the walls. So the formwork's all up there. We've got a working platform up there for the guys to get to. We had to use a concrete chute because of the angle of some of the head walls. The jiggers couldn't get in and the concrete pumps couldn't get in, so it was quite challenging. And there again is the finished product. So from the first job to the second job, at the start, you think, well, this is a lot harder, but however, applying your knowledge from the first project to this project, effectively it's the same. You just get your blinding level, and you then go back out with your nails, you set out the shutters, you create the base, and then same again, you create the wall. So it's just all about in sections and how we can achieve the same goal at the end. Another challenging area of that project was we had to remove and then reinstall a new footbridge, again, over the water. So where the dumper currently sits, that's what I was talking about earlier, where we had to create a working platform. So before we were able to put the stone there, we had to pile out to the river. This would then allow us to remove the existing bridge. We then had to create an abutment on either side and then land the new bridge on it. Another project was at Edinburgh Airport for EAL Limited. So this was I don't know if you've ever been to the airport recently, and if you've hired a car, that was the job we done. So it was the car rental extension. So within this one, there was a lot of demolition works to start with. We had to build a new road, we had to build a retaining wall, and then we also had to build an extension and a car park. So the left-hand picture shows us landing one of the new cabins that we did. The centre picture shows a new road construction, and on the right-hand side shows the retaining wall. And again, the same process as being a site engineer. Again, it was just get your level for your blinding level. You go back in again, set your machine up, set your nails out. The joiners would come in, they would get their shutters in place. You would then go back out with a dumpy, or you had a laser, set the height for the concrete, and then away you would go with your quantities. For concrete, especially on a lot of those jobs, I don't know if you've carried out material testing yet in your studies, but a big factor of a site engineer's job is carrying out slump tests and taking concrete cubes to be tested. That just you also have that's a sheet you get with the driver as well. It all goes together, and it's basically to document that everything's correct. There you see on the left-hand side, the new picture, that was part of the extension to the building. And again, the same process applies. So that was all the strip founds ready to be poured that day. And on the right-hand side, so that's nearly the finished article, just before the cladding went up. The bottom right-hand side there, you would see where the brick level is, and then if you relate that back to the left-hand picture, kind of where my mouse is, so that's where the brick level was. So it just shows you how much and how quickly a building can rise out the ground, and nobody sees all the hard work that's put in place before you can actually see the building. Maintenance framework, so Alan and Robert slightly touched on that in their introductions. So the current project I'm on just now is the M77 GSO DBFO O&M. So it's a design, build and finance operation contract. So I don't know if it's anybody's drive or whatever, but the blue part of the map, as you can see, so that's the M77. So we cover approximately 16 kilometres of that from junction 5 at Maidenhill right down to junction 8, and then the bottom part of the map is the small green section. So that's the kilometre of the A77 we cover heading towards Kilmarnock. Then over to the right hand side of the map, that's a dual carriageway called the GSO, which is a Glasgow Southern Orbital. We also cover small parts of the Queensway as well, so that's heading towards the tax office at East Kilbride. So there's over 80 structures, so that includes bridges, culverts, etc., which we have to maintain. So we have to carry out inspections, carry out maintenance works. We do lots of things. Let me just go to the next slide here, if it works. So the left-hand side picture is just a road closure that we carry out during the day for grass cutting works. Just gives you an idea of one of the jobs we do. We also have to carry out barrier repairs sometimes. And then on the right hand side there is just showing another job that we have to do. So that's us carrying out our winter maintenance programme. So we have to basically make sure the roads are black all the time throughout the winter period. Sometimes in the summer we also carry out surfacing works. So areas are identified which need to be maintained to a standard. So we then carry out kilometres of surfacing works, which again is a different part. It's not back to the concrete works and line and level, again, you're getting quantities and you're measuring up things, but and you are setting out, but it's different to what it'd be on a site. So it just shows that there are a wider variety of jobs within the engineering role itself. It's not specifically just setting out all the time. So I'll just quickly hand you over now to Robert, who can talk about the HRE framework.
The HRE framework, I touched on it in my introduction. So it's the Historical Railways Estate framework. It used to be the British Rail Board residuary. Looks after the derelict and old disused rail lines and structures throughout Scotland and England. We have been fortunate enough to win the framework for the next 7 years, and we look after the majority of structures in Scotland and North England. This structure in the photographs here is Westfield, sometimes known as Avon Viaduct. It's in Bathgate. It's a 16-span masonry viaduct, Grade B listed, which it achieved in 1974. It was actually built in 1855, and the last train ran over it in 1964. It's not a through road. It's not used at the moment by pedestrians or anyone else. However, HRE have an obligation to maintain it. So at the moment, we're actually carrying out a 42-week contract to carry out repairs and maintenance works on the structure. On the photographs there, you can see some shuttering. We're carrying out some concrete repairs to the walkways that go either side of the main line, if you like, which you can probably see on the right photograph better. We've had to install some scaffold edge protection there because the old parapet fencing was removed. We're currently looking at pricing up actually replacing that, and this may be opened up as a walkway in the future. But predominantly what we're doing at the moment is we have waterproofed the deck, put some new drainage in, we've fixed the concrete repairs to the walkways, and we're carrying out masonry repairs along all these spans using cradle access to this structure. If you just flick on to the next one, Ross, for me, it's just a drone footage of another structure that we completed earlier in the year. This is Twizzle Viaduct. It's actually in the Scottish borders. Similar idea. We were in here to carry out some masonry repairs on this structure, and we used a rope access specialist with cradles to carry out the repairs. This structure is actually based in Northumberland. It carries the former Kelso branch line over the River Till, and it was built between 1846 and 1849, and it took its last train in 1965. So we carried out numerous works in this one. There was some ecology works, so there was some bat mitigation works we had to do prior to carrying out the masonry repairs. We had the masonry repairs themselves to carry out, and the parapet fencing was to be renewed. And this one's actually open to the public. It's a thoroughfare, and it's very heavily used by dog walkers and walkers alike. I was just identifying some of the photographs there of repairs which we were to carry out, and it's just showing the scenic nature of some of these structures that we're looking after on the framework.
So, perks of the job. I suppose it's quite cliche, but no 2 days are the same, and it is very true. Again, down the bottom, when the project is constantly evolving, there's things happening all the time. You're always learning, no matter at what level. There's new experiences all the time. There's different projects. Clients ask different things with new technologies coming into play. They're always asking for new ideas to come to light on projects. Also specifically on new technologies. So for an engineer specifically, the total station is your best friend on site. That's constantly evolving. One of the jobs I did up at Aberdeen Airport, you didn't even have to use a total station now. It was a GPS survey kit, and all you had to do was plot in the coordinates. It spoke to the satellites, and away you went to plot things out. So everything is becoming evolving more and more every day. And then I suppose at the end, you do have a sense of achievement, like in every job at the end of a project. That it can be a big thing for everybody. And as well as that, you're also visiting new places. There's some places you've not even heard of before, but there might be a project there, and you'll remember that place thereafter. So I'll just quickly touch on the graduate programme. I'm not sure how many people are in their final year, but I'll just quickly cover what it entails and what you can expect if you are lucky enough to become a graduate with Balfour Beatty. So it's a 2-year graduate programme when you start. Balfour Beatty classes at the 5% club, and this is a club where they deem to be the future. So within this, they are constantly investing in that generation, and within that, you gain further qualifications throughout the 2 year, such as project management qualifications. You get more health and safety qualifications, and a big one, if you've not been on site, don't worry about it. If you do start, you then go down to Birmingham for a 5-day setting out course at Birmingham University, and it's great experience. They help you use the machine, they help you how to fix the machine if it's broken, and then you go home with a big work pack after that, so you're never stuck. A big thing as well is you also, throughout the whole UK, you get split up into groups, and you then, within the 2 years, I think it's 3 or 4 visits down to the Lake District. So you get to bond with your team in workshops. This is where you then go on some leadership and self-awareness courses. So they can tell you what is a leader, what is a manager. So some of those skills are beneficial at your current level, but also how to enhance these skills and then try and apply them at a later date when you get to a senior role like Robert and Alan. At the end of your 2 years, you then get to present what you've done with your group in front of all the directors and you're part of the business. But after that, it's not finished. They've also got an Emerging Talent Plus section where you don't need to worry. There's still support for you for those 2 years beyond, and there are also other opportunities beyond that for volunteering, etc. And then the last one there is Balfour Beatty will support you to gain professional qualification. So what we offer, again, I'm not so sure what everybody's level is at university just now, but we do offer apprenticeships, but I don't think if you're all at uni, I don't think apprenticeships will be for yourselves. But a big one, as we've all touched on, is work experience and placements, whether you're 2nd year, 3rd year, or even you're in 4th year and you want to go to a master's and you've not done a placement before, by all means get in touch, because the more experience the better, and then you can shine when you get your graduate job, or if you're going to interviews and you have plenty of experience to talk about. Graduate scheme, just what I've talked about there. You can build on your degree and you can gain a range of rewarding roles, but it's not just engineering. I've listed a few things at the bottom there. So you've got communications, PR, IT, finance, HR and legal. There are lots of other avenues within Balfour Beatty that you can get to. There's also QSs, etc. So there are a wide range of career paths which you can take. And so finally, why join Balfour Beatty? So we're a diverse organisation dedicated to finding talented individuals from all backgrounds. You become part of a team, so everybody encourages you to grow, not just the graduate scheme, but site-based as well. Everybody will push you to achieve your potential. They know you're a graduate, they know you're all clever people. They try and get the best out of you, and in the long run, you'll reap the rewards of that. You can build a career in an industry that's always evolving and becoming ever more sustainable. That's self-explanatory. We are got a couple of initiatives coming up within COP26, which is a major thing happening in Glasgow next week. But most importantly, like I touched on earlier, so you get a big sense of achievement if you drive past something, or a couple of years down the line you're back visiting and you go, I was part of that project. Trust me, you will. So again, so just if you want to apply, or you want to see potential job opportunities, there's the emails just now, or the website for careers if you want to write that down. Of course, it's on a recording, so you'll see that. If not, get in touch, and I'm sure the university will get in touch with ourselves as well. We're in good communication with UWS, so don't feel like you're a stranger, and we'll provide as much information as we can. But apart from that, thank you very much, everybody.
Great, fantastic. Thank you very much. And Alan, would you like to add your input?
Yeah.
Waiting for you.
Sorry, I wasn't expecting to have to say too much, but as I said, just I suppose taking on from what Ross said, Ross looks after I was involved in the contract in M77 in Glasgow, two of my other O&M contracts. So the contracts that were involved in, Balfour Beatty actually constructed these as well and financed them. So part of what we do is investment. So we've got an investment business, which at the moment I think it's got £1 billion worth of investments on the go over the UK and probably US and Hong Kong, as Ross said. Three of these recent jobs were building roads. One in Glasgow's 90s, the bypass in Carlisle, which is Carlisle Northern Relief Road or Development Route, which is CNDR, goes around the north side of Carlisle, was probably towards the late ends of the 2000s. And then most recently, Aberdeen bypass, Aberdeen Western Peripheral Route, 66 kilometres of bypass around the west side of Aberdeen, which you probably have heard on the news. It was fairly well publicised about how the locals were against it, basically the environmental issues that were involved there, and just didn't really want it. But that was completed in 2016, I think it was, and has been up and running now. So we now operate that as well. As I say, 66 kilometres of road there. I was also involved with the railway framework that Robert was talking about. So currently on the fourth iteration of that framework now, but loads of experience on historic structures across the top half of the UK, which Robert just displayed a few of there. One of the projects you may have seen in the news as well, we've been involved with Cairngorm Funicular up in the Highlands, which will be shutting down shortly for the winter period, but the guys have been in there over summer doing repairs to the railway line that takes you up from the kind of visitors car park up to the Ptarmigan restaurant at the top. That's going to go into next summer now as well, with the bearing replacements to bring that back up to a usable standard for the ski season and tourists in the summer. So that's an interesting project. As Ross said, one of my previous contract before I took over the kind of overseeing these frameworks was with Scotland Transerve, which was the highway maintenance operation and maintenance company for the South West Scotland region of Transport Scotland's trunk road network. So Balfour Beatty operated alongside WSP, the designer, as a joint venture partner in that, which was actually started in the Northwest in 2008, I think it was. We finished up there last summer, 2020, on the Southwest. We did about, I don't know, £350 million worth of work in the Southwest over those times. So huge amounts of projects, looking after Kingston Bridge, maintenance works on the Erskine Bridge, and maintenance works on the kind of M74 extension that's just been completed as well. So loads of interesting there. As part of that, I did my chartership, passed my chartership. So I was probably 19 years into my career, and because I worked for Transport Scotland, one of the requirements they had was that senior staff were encouraged to be chartered with ICE, which being a contractor is not necessarily required, but you'll see that more in the design function. Consultants will be looking for you to be chartered as part of their showing your competence to their clients, that you've got trained and competent engineers doing their design works. But as I say, part of that from Transport Scotland was to be have that as part of the contracting organisation. So I did my chartered review in 2017, and I'm currently a delegated engineer and an SCE for 4 or 5 graduates within Balfour now, I think. so currently going through different phases of their training with us. So we support that all the way through. One of the projects that Ross didn't mention was HS2 down in the Birmingham, so the new railway line that runs from London up to Birmingham and probably beyond that. We're going to be on there for 10 years across the piece of varying parts of Balfour Beatty. So Balfour Beatty ground engineering, do all the piling and ground engineering works that Ross was kind of talking about, these foundations and Hammond Bank, driving piles and large foundations to underground. Power T&D, the transmission and delivery element of the business, looks after all the high voltage transmission lines, currently working in the west of Scotland up Kintyre Peninsula, upgrading power lines to a better standard. Also included in that, we've got Balfour Beatty Kilpatrick. One of the videos you'd have seen actually showed the aircraft carriers which were built in Rosyth. A lot of people won't realise that Balfour Beatty were actually heavily involved in the cabling out and installation internally within that. It was done through Balfour Beatty Kilpatrick, which is our mechanical engineering, electrical engineering division. And also work in the railway, which Ross showed you, the Queen Street, obviously Forth Bridge we work on, but our rail colleagues do the actual live works on overhead lines and railway replacement work, so we worked in conjunction with them and the building division to do the full package at the Queen Street station for Network Rail. So that's just a variety, I suppose, across the board of that. Different jobs we're involved in. I say we're involved in the Scottish area, but Balfour Beatty across the UK, very busy just now. Certainly opportunity-wise, huge amounts of opportunity down in HS2, Hinckley that Ross mentioned, M25, again is a kind of session which is run by the investments business. Yeah, A1N, M4, smart motorway projects, we're working on that, upgrading those down south, bringing them up to the new standards. As I say, those big projects, HS2 and Hinckley will be 10 years plus. They'll be going to retire probably. So out of that comes opportunities for us to provide staff in there for experience and do some of the, maybe enabling work, some of the station works or maintenance yards are actually going to be built in the south of Scotland and in Dale, I think, in the south kind of borders area. We're going to be building a depot down there for maintenance works if the second section comes up beyond Birmingham. So there will be work in Scotland attached to HS2 coming sometime, next 5 to 10 years. Lastly, I suppose, as Ross said, the big thing we're on about now, COP26 is on. Everybody will see the news coming up. You'll hopefully avoid traffic congestion in Glasgow, over in Scotland in general over the next 3 weeks, but hopefully it's not too bad. But I would say stay in the house at the moment if you can. Don't travel too far or you'll get stuck. But as part of that, we are doing an innovation centre at the Blantyre Construction Innovation Centre and our Shots Depot, showcasing the new technology that's going to be used in future years, battery technology for machines, battery technology for hand tools, tower lights. Cabins are being upgraded to, well, the temporary cabins are being upgraded to the best quality insulation and running off solar panels, etc., so that the fuel usage is down, carbon savings are made, and then the hydrogen fuels is going to be coming into play for the larger machines. So if you get a chance at all, there is demonstration days up there. They're running for the next 3 weeks. You should. There's opportunities for students to go up there and have a look, either at Blantyre or Shots. So if you look at our social media feeds, you'll see opportunities to get there, to go and see what's on offer. So I commend that to you all. As I say, if you get a chance in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and just keep an eye out for the social media posts and the videos, etc. for that. So, as Ross said, timelines for careers, the graduate process probably kicks off now, November time. Graduate places will be interviews January, February time next year. So applications in now. We look at applicants from all universities in Scotland, Aberdeen, Strathclyde, Edinburgh, Glasgow, Heriot-Watt, Napier, West Scotland as well. So get yourselves in there if you're in that space for next year. And as I said, student placements probably kick off, looking for them January, February next year. We have a view to start in April time. So again, just keep your eye on that and follow those links that Ross provided you, and go from there. So open up to any questions that you may have. We'll try and answer as best we can if we haven't covered any of that.
That's great, fantastic. Thank you so much. You realize actually the house you live in, roads you're driving, you know, bridges that you're passing, they're all creation of, you know, your work, really, you know. So I drive on the M77 all the time. So now every time.
Yeah, well, no, you can send your complaints up to Ross.
That's great. Thank you very much. So what I'll do is I will be stopping the recording, but students, please ask your questions in the chat box, or you can unmute yourselves and ask the questions. Just before I stop the recording, if that's okay, I'm going to show the students where we are, the careers and academics skills, the website, that you can book careers advisors there. And also we have other events coming up with other employers, including the Scottish Government. And now I can't even remember, there are quite a few, like in November 3 and December 2 already up there, and also careers conversations there as well. So please go and look at the events and book some of the events or a slot with a careers advisor. It's great, thank you. And I'll record this, sorry, stop the recording.